Hello there, all you beautiful people. My name is Lebushki, and welcome back to another review. A review of Markiplier's newest movie and very first movie, Iron Lung. Now, I'll be very frank. I did not know much about this movie going into it. As soon as I heard that he was making a film adaptation of the game Iron Lung, I refused to watch the game. I didn't want any spoilers. I wanted to go into this fresh and just like completely raw, so to speak. I didn't want to see a single dang thing. I wanted to see a fully new adaptation from the mind of Markiplier and David Szymanski. Szymanski, I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name. It's one of those weird ones. It's like SYZ. So hopefully I'm getting it right. David Szymanski, you can come and like smack me outside the head if you want, but you'll have to find me first. Anyways, I was super excited for this. I, like many of Markiplier's subscribers, have waited years to see this, and honestly, I was very, very happy with the final product. So we'll talk about the pros and cons, of course. The first pro is, of course, Markiplier. Now, I've been watching Markiplier since 2014, back like in his pink hair days. Is like when I first got into it. That was just like forever ago. At least it feels like that. And I've been a fan and watching his videos pretty frequently, even as an adult. Every now and then I kind of go through stages of not watching, but it's kind of one of those YouTubers I've always been able to come back to and always enjoy the content without a problem. But I have to really admit, as far as personalities go, I don't think anyone compares much to Markiplier. Someone who's very humble, very kind in all degrees, and someone who has done a lot of surprisingly very excellent charitable work. You know, you kind of expect many celebrities to kind of get consumed by pride and ego, but it's been nice to see someone who hasn't, or at least is humble enough to admit their faults and move on. It's not something you see in this kind of industry. So it's very refreshing to see someone who is kind-hearted and loving towards his fans and just, everyone in general. But let's talk about the movie. First, well, second bullet point, a beautiful usage of the horror of the unknown trope. Like I said, I didn't really know what was going to happen in this movie. I had no idea what to expect. All I knew was convict, ocean of blood, submarine. That's it. That's all I knew. That's all I had in my mind. And I am, on one hand, very happy I went into this without any information, but on the other hand, not. So we'll start with why I wasn't happy with it. There's a couple things that you're expected to know, I suppose. I'm sure a lot of people probably watched the video or at least looked up what it would be about prior to going in, and I didn't, and that's kind of my own fault. But I did expect there to be a little bit more fleshing out of what happened, but there isn't. You kind of get a couple bits and pieces, but if you know what happened in the game, you'll be able to connect all the dots together. So I saw this twice. I actually saw it once the day it came out, and then the second time, as of recording this, I literally watched it yesterday. Saturday, no, Friday, something or other. I don't remember the date specifically. I don't even know the date right now because I'm crazy and I'm just recording. And so the first time, there was a couple little bits of confusion here and there, and so the second time really helped clear things up for me as I was able to re-watch everything and relearn the information, but also understand certain contexts here and there. It really helped me be able to relive the experience and understand the significance of certain events. And it's not terrible. Like, you don't even need to have a crazy amount of knowledge of the Iron Lung game to go into this. You can know like very little and it will still help you. So I do highly recommend that. Uh what I was happy with going into this is I just had no idea what to expect. And while this is marketed as horror, it's like a weird horror. It's very Lovecraftian. And by that, it very much focuses on the horror of the unknown. You don't necessarily know what's happening, but you can kind of, like I said, bits and pieces. You kind of put bits and pieces together to figure out the whole mystery for yourself. but I don't think this movie is necessarily meant to be completely understood at the same time. And I don't think the game is either. Now, I could be completely wrong. This is literally just my take, and this is just my opinion. You can disagree with me all you want in the comments or anything else. But that horror of the unknown, it just creates such a creepy atmosphere. And I really loved it. One of my favorite parts was the realization that that camera was an X ray. I had no idea. And obviously, Markiplier didn't have any idea. So the first time he sees, what he thinks is a skeleton, it's really just a creature. But still, the skeleton was creepy. And then that realization that there is, in fact, more down in that ocean of blood. Ooh, like, the tingling on the back of my neck, the goosebumps from that for the first time, so well done. So that's a prime example of not knowing going into it. That oh my gosh, that was such a great experience to be like, "Oh my gosh, wait, so that was just a full-blown creature, and I had no idea." Like, that's just one of those things that you love to see in movies. A complete surprise, one that's completely unexpected just because I was dumb and didn't do any research ahead of time. But in this case, it really worked out for me. Additionally, and the third bullet point, a surprisingly wonderful performance. I think one of the reasons why people like Markiplier so much is the fact that he is altogether a performer. And that doesn't mean to say that he's a fake person at all. I'm certainly not saying that. But he's so convincing as all the kind of roles he adapts. If you watched, Date with Markiplier, Mark in Space, A Heist with Markiplier, all those, he kind of inhabits these characters in different and interesting ways. And while you know it's him, you still enjoy the characters that he's playing. And in this, I was very surprised by a great down to earth, emotional, and just terrified performance that I just didn't expect out of him. He's a YouTuber. He's not like a professional actor, but I was like, man, this man this man knows game. He can actually act, which is nice because, there's YouTubers out there who aren't really good at acting. They just kinda had their personality, and that's what works for them, and that's completely fine. It's acting is not a job for everyone. But like I said, I was very impressed with things all around. Fourth bullet point, excellent technical elements all around. I know there was a lot of criticism received for the fact that this was blown into 2 hours and 7 minutes. And while on one hand, I can understand that. I mean, I've seen it twice, and I can admit that the first half definitely moves a lot slower. I don't feel like anything in that first half is unnecessary. I think it helps build the environment, kind of forces you into this claustrophobic place and this mindset of the convict and the real horror of being in such a claustrophobic environment while all around you you're trapped and encased in blood. And blood is very thick. It's not like water. It's it's suffocating. And that's the kind of vibe that this whole movie is going for. Which is why for the most part, except for maybe like one or two scenes, you're entirely in the Iron Lung ship. Like you spend your movie watching experience staring over Markiplier's back or into his face or into his eyes pretty much. Now for many people, that's a very enjoyable experience. I had no problem with that personally. But the cinematography was something that I heard particularly was it's just a bunch of dials. It's just a bunch of like it's not that interesting. Personally, I didn't mind it. It felt very steampunk. It kind of just showed and highlighted the environment and all of its insane detail put into it. I don't think that's a bad thing. I just think it's not what people were expecting. And so I wasn't upset with that. I kind of learned how this whole game, how this whole ship works, what its controls are, how things are done. Like that's not a bad thing. And so I was completely fine with the cinematography. There's a limited amount of shots you can get when you're just right in such an enclosed space. I was fine. Same with the score. The score was really good at like bumping up the intense moments. And not all of those intense moments had a payout, but I loved being able to keep guessing with like what was going to happen and what wasn't. It was that element of mystery. Again, the horror of the unknown, the Lovecraftianness, I guess, that really kept this movie exciting. Fifth point, this movie is just a phenomenal piece of indie filmmaking, despite its limitations. It's completely self financed by Markiplier himself. And that's that is so beyond impressive because just for a movie to get made, it is very hard. You have to go through a million different hoops just to get to the final and finished product. And Mark was able to do that just with his own, money and the friendship of the people around him. Like he made connections. He did things entirely himself, and that is beyond insane because that is something that's so inspiring to many people who are getting into film and all that. I mean, it's even inspiring for me to like pursue my own dreams and whatnot, all the cheesy stuff, I suppose you could say. Like, I'm currently kind of pursuing this little job, quote unquote, in YouTube. And while that's not doing much for me, I'm really enjoying it. I'm having fun putting myself out there and kind of being a performer. It's, if anything, it's impressive because it goes against what many people have been taught is that you need to have a huge studio assigned to your project. You need the advertising, you need the shareholders, you need all the blah 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 corporate bullcrap, and that's how you get your movie made. That is not the case. This got so popular just based off of word of mouth and goodwill towards people like Markiplier, towards his fans who love and enjoy his content. I mean, I knew from the first moment I heard about this, I was going to go see it. There was no doubt in my mind about it. And I'm so happy that I did. And I've seen the reviews, and the reviews are kind of hit or miss. A lot of people are being like, "Oh my gosh, this is so boring. This is just uninteresting. Bad performance, bad blah 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 blah." And that brings me down to my sixth one, two, three, four, five, six. My sixth point is that this dares to try something new and interesting. Enclosed space, uh, the spreading out, I suppose, of a very short game into 2 hours is very hard. It's completely new. It's interesting. And honestly, I think people are just being too harsh on it. And just because Markiplier is a good personality does not mean that right away his movie's going to be the best thing you've ever seen. It's certainly one of the most impressive things I've ever seen. But I'm not going to go and say this is the best movie I've ever seen because that's just not realistic. There's a million movies out there. I just think people are being too harsh on it. I think it's excellent. The only problem I have is the very bottom, my seventh one. Various audio mixing and design problems. Subtitles heavily recommended. So this was another reason why I saw the movie twice. There's a lot going on. And while the audio is very good and there's a lot used to help drum up scares and score, Markiplier himself can be a little mumbly and not always very good at enunciating. Sometimes I could not understand what was being said and kind of had to rely off of the clues of the environment or what was happening based off what he said. And that works, but not all the time. Especially in the end, there's a lot going on. No, I'm not going to spoil it, but there's a lot going on and there's voices. There's a lot of overlapping voices. There's a lot of loud voices. There's back and forth talking and everything throughout it. And it's really hard to understand what's being said. I think the audio mixing needs to just be like tweaked a little bit. And if it was, I think this would just be like possibly a very easy 100 out of 100 A plus film. But it isn't, unfortunately. And you know what? I'm fine with that too, because I don't hate this movie at all. But like I said, subtitles heavily recommended. That's why I said I'm gonna see it again. I want to be able to see. I want to be able to digest. I want to be able to mull over on this stuff, which is why this is coming out a little bit later than I would have liked. But that is all. Uh, I gave this an A minus, a 90 out of 100. It is very impressive on all its technical elements. I know Mark has always had a keen eye for detail, and I've found this to be incredibly impressive, all things considered. But like I said, the audio is it's really hard to get through in certain moments. And you know what? Hopefully that critique is something that he's been told or he'll learn from because I think this man could have a very bright future in continuing to make movies. And I really hope he does because wow, was it just mind-blowing and such an enjoyable horror film experience. So, without further ado, thank you everyone so much for watching. Hope you all have a wonderful day doing whatever that you shall be doing. Go see a movie in theaters. Doesn't have to be this movie, but movies are meant to be seen in theaters. So go see one in theaters. Please support your local chain and just lose yourself for 90 to 120 minutes into some other world. It's magical. And I'll see you in the next one. But until then, take it easy. Peace.